And welcome, everyone. I'm Bill Newell with MSONewsports.com. Phil Stacy, Nick Kukuru, Matt Williams are all here as well. The Big V, back for another week of kind of talking some sports, looking ahead and looking back. And Phil, as from the Salem News point of view, what's kind of happened this past week? Yeah, I was talking to Nick a moment ago, and you look at the sports pages. It kind of looks like things are back to normal. We know it's not at all back to normal, but yet we have game stories on the sports pages.
Yes, we do, which is good. It's nice to be out at events, seeing people, albeit from a distance, and watching these student athletes apply their trade. It's been really good. It makes you feel like things are a little bit back to normal. It's not, clearly, and we see that in the games we cover and shortened seasons and, how the rules have changed for all of our sports. I think with the exception of volleyball, we've been out to everything so far. And, we've seen those changes, and teams and coaches and schools are making the best of it. Guys, I assume you've noticed the same thing when you've been out?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, still a little getting used to, on the field with these rule changes, which is, totally understandable. But, I mean, at least, everyone seems to be upbeat. Everyone seems to be happy to be out there. I know the athletic directors probably have the most difficult jobs of anybody right now. But, even they've been pretty upbeat. I'm sure it's been kind of a nightmare for them from a scheduling perspective.
I think so, yeah. I've seen a couple of soccer games. You guys have probably seen a few more than I have, but I feel like that's where we see a lot of the rules changes too, with no corner kicks or headers and things like that.
Matt, how about yourself?
I mean, it's been good. It's been, what it's been. I don't know. Pretty used to it now. I don't really notice the differences, to be honest with you. I've been to 4 soccer games, and after the first one, it's like, well, this is it. It doesn't seem different at all. Cross country is more or less the exact same, so I don't think there's much going on there. They've got their big meet this weekend too, so I'd be very interested to see how that goes. The MSTCA is putting on the Frank Kelly Invitational, and you're going to have some of the best runners in the state there. They're going to do staggered times, and they're going to go off in waves, I think, at 12, and it's going to be like NASCAR at the end. We're going to see who has the best times, and it's going to be great. I mean, if it goes well and everything goes off without a hitch, that's going to be, I think, a way for the best runners in the state to compete against each other and see who's the best. And I imagine if this one goes well, we're going to have more later. And, we're not going to be allowed to call it a championship, but I think everybody's going to know that that's what it is. And that's great. And kudos to the MSTCA for putting it on. It reminds me, not that I was around, but what I've read about the 60s and 70s, when the MIA wasn't in control of everything and the coaches put on their own championships. And so, it's back to the future a little bit in that way. And I'll really have my eye on that this weekend down in Attleboro on Sunday to see how it goes, what the times are, and, if it's a great experience for everyone. I know locally there are some great runners going. Some other great runners are kind of keeping an eye on it. Like, I'm not going to go to the first one, but if it goes really well, I'm going to go to the second one. So, a lot of eyes to see how that goes. It's pretty exciting.
I look at the situation, and maybe you guys would like to have some information on this piece too, is you look at Eastern Mass high school sports, and there aren't any stories of any problems so far, right? I mean, that I haven't really seen any. And yet we hear the stories of the Patriots, missing a player here and there. Another one tests positive at the end of this week here. So these things are happening, either within practices or coming outside, or, who knows where this is happening for these professional players. But again, for the most part, it seems like we haven't seen a lot of problems on the high school front, which is good. Fingers crossed right now.
I think so, yeah. I mean, by following the proper protocols, and it's been great to see everyone wearing masks at these events. And I know it's not easy for these student athletes, but they've adjusted very well. They're champs about it, if that's a proper word to use. And they're making the best of a bad situation that we all have to deal with here. So the few fans that have been at games, I was at Bishop Fenwick the other day where there were some fans allowed there, and they were all compliant, which was good to see. And been to some Cape Ann League matches. It's been the same thing. One conference match where people have been outside the fence, and that's okay. So I think to summarize, it's kind of like what the rest of us are doing, try to make the best of a bad situation. So far, so good. Knock on wood that it stays that way.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's been a little effect, in my area. I know of a couple players, obviously can't and won't mention any names, but that are out for a couple weeks quarantine right now because they were a close contact. Not that they have it, but they were a close contact. So, I mean, where it's, really tough for those kids. I feel for those kids. I know it's, at least they're taking the necessary precautions and not really even, taking any chances here.
Mhm. You talk about the athletic directors. I mean, those guys, in a way, Phil, you were talking about, what a difficult job they have, at this time with making sure all the protocols are kept. But on the other hand, just think if this had been totally shut down, this is much better than that piece where there's no athletics whatsoever possibly have happened. If we go back a month or two ago, 6 weeks ago, all of this was happening. We're anticipating the fall sports season possibly. And it looks like it does now, but at one point it didn't look like we would even have one. So this is clearly a better scenario for that piece as well. At least there are things to schedule, things to plan, and things to report on, and so on.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is more of a minor inconvenience than a big problem, I think. As you said, the important thing, and I think it's great that so many coaches that I talk to, whether it's by phone or out at events or even through email, you really get the sense that this is not anything that they're taking for granted. And even a few games in, they still feel as though it's just a chance to get out there and play is an opportunity, a blessing, if you will, just to have that. And as Willie alluded to with the cross country meet that's being run this weekend, you can't call something a championship per se, but it's really akin to that, getting out and just being able to have this season. Got to remember, I think a lot of these fall athletes, I don't have a specific number, but a good amount of them probably were also spring athletes that missed out on doing that all together. So for a lot of these young men and women, they have not played competitive varsity sports since mid to late February, perhaps, when their fall tournament, when their fall teams didn't play, or maybe for some of them not since last fall. They haven't played since late October, November. So just being out, being able to play, that's the main thing. And if you gotta work some things around scheduling wise, or you have a day like Friday where it rained and things got postponed, you just deal with it.
I look out at, in the past couple of weeks in the fall here, now we're clearly well into the fall, and you have a beautiful day and you think, these are the beautiful days you'd love going to those football games or love going to the afternoon soccer game. There's no football now, obviously, but those days where you're at the game for 3 hours or more, whatever it is, before and after the games, and you just appreciate a nice day on a Friday night or a Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, I'll even take the rain games at this point. I'm just happy to be out of something.
Yeah. Gentlemen, I guess any particular highlights from this past week, with any individuals beginning to emerge? It's, again, everything's kind of so small and, fragmented, if you will, but anything standing out, performances, individual performances, team performances?
I know that the Masconomet field hockey team is off to a terrific start, as we've mentioned several times in the podcast here. First full year for the Chieftains as a member of the Northeastern Conference. They had won the last 8 Cape Ann League field hockey titles in a row, and it appears as though, although it may not be official, they may, very well have their sights set on winning a conference title this fall as well. They're 2-0. They've won 6-0 in their opener, 9-0 in their second game. So that obviously adds up to 15 goals for, 0 against. I think they've faced 1 shot against in 2 games. Maggie Sturgis, she's only a sophomore for Masconomet, already has some ridiculous numbers. I think she got 13 points in 2 games already, I want to say. Allie McSweeney has played very well for Masconomet. I'm sorry, Callie McSweeney, I should say. They have talent up and down the lineup, and they got a great game coming up with the defending NEC champs, Danvers, this coming Monday night at 6:30. Of course, Danvers was scheduled, weather permitting, to open their season Saturday morning at Beverly. So that Masco at Danvers game should be a good one.
Mm-hmm. Anything that you've seen, Nick or Matt?
Yeah, I saw some good stuff on the soccer field. I know it was that the Rockport boys are off to a pretty good start. That they're 2-1-1, a nice tie against Newburyport. I think that actually might have been their best performances. Dave Curley said that was a much more deeper and much more veteran team than them. They came away with a draw, and nice stuff. Gloucester girls soccer got off to a nice start yesterday. Their junior striker Darcy Muller with 4 goals and a 4-1 win. So she looks like a player to watch out for. She's been a varsity player since she was in 8th grade. So she could be turned into a superstar this year.
Yeah, really going to get cracking next week. I think you gotta shut out the Hamilton Wenham girls. Top of the table in the Cape Ann League. Shutouts in their first 3 games. Finally allowed a goal against Newburyport, but came back with a 1-1 tie in that one. So looks like after they beat Amesbury, they'll be atop the Baker. That almost assures them of the Baker championship, and then the Cal playoffs will probably be 3 great teams: Amesbury, Hamilton Wenham, and Port, with one other unfortunate soul that gets stuck with those 3 powers in their little mini beanpot tournament, I'm calling it. In the NEC for girls, very exciting to see Swampscott playing well. They got Sophie DeGrande back. She missed the whole year last year with an injury, and she's added a lot to the attack there. And now once Danvers gets going, you're going to have a great match every day when Danvers is playing one of those teams in Masco and Beverly and Peabody. I mean, there's only 10 teams, so pretty good chance one of those teams is going to be playing one another each and every Tuesday and Friday. So there's going to be some great matches to watch. And this week across country, but Beverly and Marblehead are going to race at the Estates there on Wednesday, which is interesting because, I mean, you got, that's, I think, going to decide the NEC championship for the boys and the girls, in my opinion. And, it's unfortunate if any of the great runners run on Sunday, but also Marblehead's supposed to run a dual meet on Saturday. So that's the one thing I don't get. I'm fully in support of Beverly running at home. I think more teams should be running at home if it's possible. But I don't know why they run on a Wednesday instead of a Saturday, because, I mean, Salem had to run on short rest this week, Saturday to Wednesday, and now Marblehead's going to have to do it in a championship situation, Saturday to Wednesday. So that's kind of awkward. I mean, I usually if I run a 5K road race, I'm doing one every 3 months, 4 months. I'm certainly not doing one every 3-4 days. That's a challenge.
That would not be a problem for Phil, though, nowadays, right? Phil, you could handle that, I think, right?
I've done back-to-back 5K days after my walk. Yeah, not to sound like a hardo or anything, but yeah, I'm doing what I can. I was going to say if our colleague Nick Pianino were here, he'd certainly be talking about St. John's Prep golf team. They're coming off of a great week. They're undefeated. They had a great match the other day with Zavarian. They're 2 of the best teams in the state, 2 of the best high school golf teams in the state anyway. And they were tied through 6 cards. They had to go to a 7th card, like a card off, I guess it was, and the Prep won by a point. And one of their golfers, Aiden LeBlanc, has he's been under par for 5 straight matches. In fact, the day after they beat Zavarian, he shot, I think, a 33, 2 under at Beverly Golf and Tennis to beat Malden Catholic. So no surprise, I suppose, but the Eagles have been red hot on the link so far this year.
There's some good stuff in the Cal Small for golf too. I know it was a Hamilton Wenham, Rockport, and Manchester Essex. I think they've all beaten each other in Cal action, so I think they might be setting up a pretty nice league championship race there for the final weeks.
Maybe you guys could go ahead, Matt. Go ahead.
I was going to say it's impressive, and I wonder if we'll see an NEC or Cal golf tournament at the end of the year, because it's just typically each team sends two golfers, right? They don't bring the whole team. So, I mean, if you have a few teams, two golfers each, that's not too many kids. I suggested to the cross country coaches that they could do that. If you really wanted to see who the best runner is, just run it like the golf tournament where you only send two runners instead of the whole team, and the suggestion, if they want to see who the best team is to just everybody runs the course on their own and you just add up the times. But I haven't heard anything about the golf if they're going to do that, but that'd be pretty cool if they did.
Maybe you guys could share with everybody finally the regular season schedule, how it shook out for schools and teams, and then what the postseason might look like, with limited postseason with soccer and field hockey. You guys already touched a little bit on golf and cross country, but what about the soccers?
Well, from what I know, Bill, the Cape Ann League will be running their form of playoffs for field hockey and soccer. If memory serves me right, I think the field hockey starts on November 6th. That's a Friday. And the boys and girls soccer would start the next day, Saturday. And I think it's going to be like 2 rounds, nothing super fancy or anything like that. It's just a chance to get some postseason games within the league against each other, maybe to officially crown a champion. Bishop Fenwick is going to do the same thing. I know in the Cape Ann League, the Catholic Central League, a double elimination tournament for the boys and girls soccer. I believe they also have a volleyball playoff. I'm not sure if they're doing field hockey. To my knowledge, there is not any Northeastern Conference postseason activities being planned. Because for a lot of those schools, they go up until, I want to say, like the 17th or 19th of November, that week before Thanksgiving, involving Danvers, where Danvers got started late. In fact, they just started most sports on Friday. So they're playing a couple of soccer games then. I think Beverly might even still be playing then. Masconomet might have a field hockey game in there against Saugus. So I think those schools go right up until that week, maybe even the 20th. There may even be a Beverly Danvers boys soccer game on February 20th. I think the Catholic Conference is also doing some form of playoffs, golf playoff, boys soccer playoff that would involve St. John's Prep.
Yeah, I call them bean pots, these tournaments. They're going to put the teams in pods of 4 and then play 2 games, which is awesome. Everybody gets 2 games no matter what. Even if you lose the first one, you get a consolation chance to win your final game. So I think for the Cal and the CCL, it's a perfect plan. And, if the NEC has time, they can always add it later. I think it's pretty cool.
I always liked that. Years ago, they used to do the hockey hockey playoffs at the end. The top 4 teams would meet down at Lynn. This goes way back.
Yeah.
Back to the old North Shore Sports Center. I know for a couple of years they tried it in basketball, or at least 1 year. But I know one team, did not take it seriously, and because they were getting ready for the postseason. I think they got quickly bounced out of the postseason, but they didn't use it as a real tune-up and play hard in those 4 games. But it was like I think it was spurred from the excitement that at the time, back all these years ago, that these college leagues were having with their playoffs, the Big East tournament, the ACC tournament, how huge those were for fan interest. And I thought, man, what a great idea! Extend it into basketball. Continue it in hockey, but either with the leagues, the teams, the scheduling, I understand the difficulty there, and then the MIAA, it all fell apart. But I always thought it would be a great thing to do. You have baseball bean pots, you have the hockey bean pots, men and women's, and it would seem to be a neat thing to do for basketball as well.
I agree. It's back to the future. We can't have a regular state tournament like we didn't back in the day. So let's do the things we used to do, and you're right, Bill, and we all love the 2-day tournaments we see in the wintertime, right? Basketball, Old North Shore Invitational, hockey, the Gloucester Holiday Tournament up there, and many others, Kazabuski Christmas, the Christy Sereno deal, the Frady's Tournament, of course. Baseball used to have some of those, the old Woodman Tournament. So, if we have some extra time here before Thanksgiving and it's not bitterly cold, let's do it.
Yeah. And you have these tournaments. You've had it, like I'm thinking of a few, I won't mention them, but at the basketball tournaments at the end of the year, and you have teams in them, and they're all, the games tend to matter because they may need to qualify or to get into the postseason or whatever. And you often have mismatches or teams that, aren't even in there. So this way you have the league's best teams. I think it would be great for Cape Ann League, Northeast Conference, all the leagues. It would be a fun thing to have. But, as long as somehow or other, you almost have to have those as extra games on the schedule so you don't penalize the teams that don't make the top 4 teams in those little top 4 tournaments that we're talking about. So they get their 20 games in or whatever. But what's the harm in that? Seriously, come on. You have this, in a normal basketball season or hockey season.
More the merrier, I say, if they can make it work and get it in. I'm sure,
Let me interrupt you, Phil. I'm sorry to do it, but they talk about the postseason in football. They add games there. Why can't they, what I'm saying? Why can't we do it in basketball as well? What's the difference? 2 games in a winter sports season or a baseball season? You know what I'm saying? I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
There's another talking point for us this week. Our friend Steve Dombowski came out with a proposal for football. I mean, this what seems sometimes like a never-ending fight to try to get a perfect playoff system for football, one where everyone would be happy. There wouldn't be these ridiculous consolation games when you lose from the playoffs and all. I don't know. I know Willie and I talked about it, but Nick and Bill, I don't know if you guys got a chance to see that or not.
I talked to Steve like months ago now, back before, he had a couple of plans before. I liked him. I thought they made a lot of sense, to be honest with you, but they got shot down,
Well, he came out with a new one this week.
I know. Yeah. So I'm not that familiar with that one exactly.
To be honest. Are they going to do, I noticed in the postseason it was 5 days in between games. I don't know if that's something that'd be doable anymore. And the postseason would be pretty short, wouldn't it? It would be, eight teams per division, no sectionals. So I feel like we're back to square one here, the pre-2012 or pre-2013, system where the knock was not enough teams got a chance to play for a Super Bowl.
Yeah, Willie, you should bring up the point I don't want to take the words out of your mouth, but the point you made to me yesterday about Swampscott.
Yeah, let me, so I got the numbers here on Twitter. So Nick Kukru there is absolutely right. So in 2012, 72 teams in the state made the playoffs, and this plan will qualify 64. And we decided 72 wasn't nearly enough, and we need to rip up the whole system and change everything because it's not enough. So let's have less than that. I don't think that makes a lick of sense. For reference, 168 teams made it in football in 2019, which is still fewer than we saw for boys basketball, 205, boys soccer, 209, and baseball in 2019, 206. So these people that tell you too many football teams make the playoffs, well, I don't hear them complaining about basketball, soccer, and baseball. And, my opinion, teams that can win state championships aren't going to make the playoffs. Swampscott, the Big Blue, the champions, and they didn't really play a close game. Phil and I saw their state semifinal game, the cold night that we went down there. Bill was there with us too, I think, in Holyoke or Hopedale or wherever that was. It was reasonably close at halftime, and I feel like Swampscott was never out of control of the game. They kind of blew them away in the second half, and that was probably the closest game they played, and yet in an 8-team playoff, I don't think they would have made it because they were the 4th seed in Division 5 North. And so,
5 seed.
Wasn't it 5 seed? Yeah. So, you go the whole statewide, you figure there's going to be, let's just say conservatively, 3 from the North, 3 from the South, and only 1 each from the Central and the West, which is going to get the ears of the Central and West people all upset. Well, Swampscott doesn't make that field, and that's the state champion. And the whole point of the playoffs as they exist is to make sure the teams capable of winning the state title make the field. And so to me, Nick Kukru said it in a lot less words than I just did, but he's totally right. This whole thing's a step backwards to the old days when state championship teams were sitting home not making the playoffs.
Yeah, and as much as people, complain about this current system, which definitely has its share of flaws, the one before it was far worse. I still stand by that. I think the one that we had before it was
Pre-12.
Yeah, I thought it just became, once all those leagues started splitting in half, it just kind of became really watered down. You had teams that were out of, were aligned in divisions, and it wasn't really that good anymore.
What I like about this one is that really every game counts right until Thanksgiving. That part I'm all on board for. I think that's great.
Yeah.
You want games on Thanksgiving counting towards league championships and going to the playoffs more frequently, that kind of thing. But I do think there's going to be huge pushback from winter coaches extending that fall season another week or even 10 days, Willie? Another week maybe?
I think it's just 1 week.
1 week, okay. I think there'd be a lot of pushback from your basketball, hockey, wrestling, track coaches as far as that goes.
I thought when I talked to Steve, and I could be totally wrong on this, but the Swampscott situation under their scoring system, that team this past year under one of the new systems with less teams would still qualify because it would be done in a different way. I could be wrong on that piece, but it is a good point about Swampscott. But on the other hand, though, to compare how many teams qualify in football to how many teams qualify in basketball, it's a different sport. I mean, football, ideally, you have a week in between games. Basketball, you can take 2 nights off and play, on the fourth or third night. You know what I mean? It's just a different sport.
I just want to give everybody an opportunity. Up until this year, Major League Baseball had fewer playoff teams than the NFL, right? So, they make that work. I don't know. I don't think, as someone who played snaps for 2 teams that were ranked number 1 in the state at various points in the season and never played a playoff game, I think as many football teams as possible that can make the playoffs need to be in the playoffs. I think it's ridiculous to have teams that can win a state championship and be ranked in the Sweet 16, not make the playoffs. I just think it's absurd.
All right. Gentlemen, any final thoughts from you guys in the final minute or two that we have here together on this, it's a kind of a damp weekend, I guess.
I think Willie hit the nose on the head earlier when he said that things will start ramping up a little bit this coming week, which is good to see now that everybody is officially playing, at least, in our 2 coverage areas here with Gloucester. Nick has started to ramp it up. Danvers is playing now. St. John's Prep is full bore. So everybody's going. We'll have a lot of games played, and it's still, weather-wise, it's still nice enough. Not 70 degrees necessarily, but you can still get out there, enjoy an afternoon at a game. Socially distanced, of course, but to get out and support your schools and for us to watch games and report on those. And that's what we enjoy doing. It's good to be out and interact with coaches and athletes and things like that and tell their stories, not just the final score and who had the goals and things like that, but to tell their stories. So I think it's a win-win for all of us when we're able to do that.
The other thing is it's going to be over before we know it. I've been going to games, and you guys have for 2 weeks, and it feels like it's still just starting. So I think it's going to be kind of a sprint here where everything's kind of jam-packed, and it's going to be over before we know it. So I would say to everybody, enjoy it. Try to get as much out of it as you can here. These next 4 or 5 weeks, it's going to be Thanksgiving before you know it. People are going to have their Christmas lights up. So, this time of year, things tend to go by really fast.
Yeah, Matt, do you have your Halloween costume picked out yet or not? It's time's flying here.
I have a few options. There's things in the brew pub, if you will.
All right. Okay, cool. All right. Well, on that note, we'll stop, I guess. But gentlemen, have a great weekend, and good seeing you guys again.
Thanks, Bill. You too.
Guys.
Have a good weekend.